All right, today we're going to talk about something most people don't truly understand, and it's the reason that they're not building muscle despite training hard. So the topic is muscle protein synthesis, or MPS, and it's the process that actually builds muscle in our body. And if you don't understand it, you can lift all you want, you could show up at the gym, you can train hard, but it's likely that you won't build the muscle you're capable of. Because here's the truth, lifting weights creates the stimulus, but protein builds the muscle. So without adequate protein, without understanding when to eat, how much to eat, and how to spread it out throughout your day, you are leaving gains on the table. So today I'm going to break down muscle protein synthesis. I'm going to show you exactly how much protein you need, when to eat it, and why most people fail at this without even realizing it. Because the mistake isn't complicated, but it costs you tons of progress. So let's dive into it. First off, what is muscle protein synthesis? First, let me explain what happens when you lift weights. When you do a bicep curl, when you do a squat, when you do any resistance exercise, you are creating microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. That is the stimulus, and your body recognizes this as damage, so it immediately initiates a repair process. But here's the key. Your body doesn't just repair the muscle, it builds it stronger, it builds it bigger. And that rebuilding process is called muscle protein synthesis. So here's what happens at a cellular level. Your body activates pathways that say, hey, we need to build more muscle. And then your body starts pulling amino acids from the protein you eat, and it starts assembling them into new muscle proteins. So the more amino acids that are available, the more efficiently your body can build muscle. And that is why protein is a non-negotiable for muscle growth. But here's what most people don't understand. Muscle protein synthesis doesn't just happen once after your workout. It happens repeatedly throughout the day, every time you eat protein. And that's why when you eat protein, how much you eat matters a lot. So I'm going to talk to you about something called the anabolic window, and we're going to talk about what the research says, and I'm going to bust some myths first. First off, you've probably heard you have to eat 30 minutes after your workout, otherwise you won't build muscle. And it's not necessarily true. What the research actually shows is that the anabolic window is real, but it's much longer than 30 minutes. Studies show that muscle protein synthesis remains elevated for up to 48 hours after resistance training. So yes, there's a window where your body is primed to build muscle, but it's not necessarily within 30 minutes. It is important after you've expended a lot of energy lifting to refuel your body. So I typically aim to eat that protein within a couple hours, maybe within a first hour or two. A lot of times I recommend people get that protein and carbs into their body within 30 minutes to an hour because it can reduce soreness later. So just remember that yes, there is a window. It doesn't necessarily have to be 30 minutes, but that being said, it is still smart to eat protein relatively soon after your workout, not because you'll lose your gains, but because your muscles are primed to use that protein efficiently right after your workout. So they're going to absorb the amino acids faster. It helps you meet your daily protein target. So the sooner you get protein in, it's easier to spread it out throughout your day. It does support your recovery. So protein helps reduce soreness. It accelerates the repair process. So here's the recommendation. I say eat protein within 30 minutes to an hour post-workout. Not because it's magical, but because it's practical and it supports your recovery. And here's the important part. It doesn't matter if it's a shake or if it's whole foods, doesn't matter if it's a protein bar. I drank protein shakes for years, and recently I switched to whole foods, eating a high protein meal after my workout instead of just drinking a shake. But your body doesn't care where the protein comes from. It cares about the amino acids in the protein. So if a shake works for you, do that. If whole foods work better, do that. What matters is consistency and total daily protein intake, not the source. So the next question I always get is, how much protein do you actually need? And this is where most people mess up. They think they're eating enough protein, but they're not even close. So the research-backed recommendation says that for muscle building, you need approximately 0.7 to 1 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight. So let me give you an example with numbers. My ideal body weight is around 140 to 150 pounds. So I personally eat 150 grams of protein a day. My current body weight is 140 pounds, but I'm still aiming for that 150 grams of protein because I want to keep my muscle mass and lean out at the same time. So I'm achieving body recomposition. I am in a slight deficit right now. So if you weigh 160 pounds, you should aim for anywhere between 112 to 160 grams of protein a day, depending on if you're in that 0.7 to 1 gram range. I typically recommend for adult females aiming for at least 150 grams a day, and for adult males aiming for around 180 to 200 grams a day, just because the more protein we eat, the more satiated we are, and it does have a thermogenic effect. So our body uses calories to burn protein. So it is a great source for us to be fueling with throughout the day to make sure we're maintaining our muscle mass and achieving that muscle protein synthesis. But this is where I see most clients fail. They will hit their calorie target, but their protein percentage is low, maybe 20 to 25% of their daily calories instead of the 35% that I typically recommend. So when protein is too low, body recomposition results tank. So clients aren't building muscle as fast as they could, and they're not losing fast as efficiently either, because muscle is what fuels our fat loss. So they're not seeing the changes they want. But the moment they actually shift to that 35% protein and hitting that goal consistently, everything changes. You get better muscle definition, more strength, better recovery, and better results. And why? Because their body actually has enough of those amino acids to actually build muscle. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make with protein is eating too late in the day. And I see it constantly with my clients, with people who are just coming into the program, with random people messaging me on Instagram. But someone wakes up and they eat a low protein breakfast. Maybe it's toast, 2 eggs, and that's it, and some coffee. And that's only 15 grams of protein. And then mid-morning, they're having like a banana and more coffee, or some granola. And at lunch, they're having a salad with some chicken, which is like 25 grams of protein. And then they panic because it's 3 p.m. and they've only had 40 grams of protein for the day. So at dinner, they're trying to cram 100 plus grams of protein into their day with tons of steak or chicken or yogurt or cottage cheese. And you know what? They still don't hit their targets. Or if they do, it's way more than their body can efficiently use in one meal, or they just feel overly full and uncomfortable. So this is a trap. Playing catch up at the end of the day is a problem. What I aim to do is I split my protein up throughout the day into 3 sections. So breakfast protein, 50 grams, lunch protein, 50 grams, dinner protein, 50 grams. And here's why playing catch up at the end of the day isn't the best option. So there will be people who say your body can only process so much protein, and that's false. Your body will process as much protein as you feed it. Now, the difference is roughly 40 to 50 grams is what efficiently triggers that muscle protein synthesis. So when they say you can't properly utilize it, it means that it's not being utilized for muscle protein synthesis. So your body will use it for purposes such as energy and other functions, but it won't go towards muscle building. So if you only eat 20 grams of protein at breakfast, 15 grams at lunch, and then 120 grams at dinner, you're not maximizing your muscle protein synthesis during the morning and afternoon hours. So what I do is I spread my protein out across the day so I'm not leaving gains on the table. So my daily breakdown is that I wake up at 4 a.m., I get showered, dressed, and ready, and I have collagen in my coffee at 4:30 in the morning. That's 10 grams of protein. This helps stabilize my cortisol and start bringing it down first thing in the morning. At 6 a.m., I have my first breakfast, which is typically eggs or egg whites mixed with vegetables and some other sort of carb. At 9 a.m., I have my second breakfast, which is typically 20 to 25 grams of protein, and that is a yogurt bowl. So within the morning hours, I've hit 50 grams of protein between coffee, first breakfast, second breakfast. Now at lunch, I aim for around 50 grams of protein, typically a meat, a starch, and a vegetable. And then I have a pre-workout snack that is typically all carbs. And then dinner time, I have 50 grams of protein. So I spread it out throughout the day, 50 grams in the morning, 50 grams in the afternoon, 50 grams at dinner. And why does this work better? Because every time I'm eating within those windows, I am triggering muscle protein synthesis. So by eating protein 5 times throughout the day, I'm triggering it 5 times. Compare that to somebody who eats 40 grams at breakfast, 40 at lunch, and then 70 at dinner. They're only triggering it 3 times. More frequent protein intake works for some people. Some people's days only allow them to eat 3 big meals, and that's okay. If you're hitting muscle protein synthesis 3 times a day, that's amazing, and you will build muscle. But if you're only hitting it once a day, then you are leaving gains on the table. So let's talk about some protein timing and distribution. So one key thing to do is spread it out throughout your day. Don't try to eat all your protein at once. If you spread it out across 4 to 5 meals throughout the day or snacks, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to hit. So I aim for roughly 30 to 50 grams per meal. And again, for me, that looks like first breakfast, second breakfast, and my coffee in the morning is one batch of 50 grams. Lunch is 50 grams, dinner is 50 grams. And people will come at me and say that collagen isn't a whole protein source. And that's true. It doesn't have all of the necessary amino acids that like meats do, but collagen is a protein source. So don't negate it at all. It can still count towards your protein goal. The next thing to look at is eating protein post-workout within 30 minutes to an hour if possible. So this is important for maximizing and elevating your muscle protein synthesis window post-workout, supporting your recovery, and making it easier to hit your daily target. So for me, I work out at 3:30 p.m., so I eat dinner at about 5:30. So that is 2 hours post-workout, but that works for me, and it's realistic because I'm not trying to force down a meal right after training. Now, if you're working out first thing in the morning, I do recommend getting that protein in first thing in the morning, because if you're waiting a few hours, for one, you might be keeping your cortisol elevated in the morning, but also you want to start that recovery process and making sure that you're getting your protein in early so you're not making up for it at the end of the day. But you have to do whatever is realistic for you and your schedule. But the point is, try to get your protein in relatively soon. Try not to be waiting 3-4 hours after your workout to eat. The next thing is eating carbs post-workout and with your protein, preferably. This is something that a lot of people overlook. When you lift weights, you deplete your muscles' glycogen stores. Glycogen is in your muscles and it's basically stored carbohydrate fuel. So eating carbs post-workout will replenish your glycogen, so you start recovering better for your next workout. It does spike your insulin slightly, which helps drive those amino acids into your muscle cells, and it supports recovery and soreness. So I eat carbs before my workout as a snack, and then I have protein and carbs together at dinner. But the timing is flexible. The point is, don't neglect carbs post-workout if you want optimal recovery and muscle growth. Now let's talk about why early protein matters. This is a breakfast problem, and so many people get into this stage of fasting and skipping breakfast, but it is crucial. And most people eat low protein breakfasts, and it sets them up for failure throughout their entire day. And here's why. Your body is in a fasted state when you wake up. You've been without food for 8 to 10 hours, and your muscles are primed to accept amino acids and rebuild. So if you skip protein at breakfast, you miss that window. Then all day you're trying to play catch up. And here's what happens. A low protein breakfast, anywhere from like 10 to 15 grams, your muscles don't get that amino acid necessary to start rebuilding. You miss triggering your muscle protein synthesis early in the day, and you're already behind on your daily protein target, which is going to make later in the day harder to play catch up. Now, if you have a high protein breakfast between 25 and 50 grams of protein, your muscles get the amino acids they need right away. You trigger muscle protein synthesis first thing in the morning. You set the tone for the day, and you're already ahead of your target. So here's the kicker. When you start with a high protein breakfast, you don't have to cram protein at the end of the day. What a thought. You could spread it out evenly, you could eat normally, you can actually enjoy your meals instead of feeling like you're force feeding yourself. I personally, again, do 2 breakfasts, one at 6 a.m., one at 9 a.m., which is around 40 grams of protein, plus my collagen at 4:30 and my coffee, which means that by 9 a.m., I've already eaten around 50 grams of protein. By noon, I'm at 100 grams, and at 5:30 at dinner, I just need 50 more grams. And that's not stressful, that's sustainable. So compare that to someone who only gets 10 grams at breakfast and they're trying to stuff 120 grams in at dinner. That's exhausting, and it doesn't work well. So the mechanism, how protein builds muscle, let me explain what's actually happening in your body. When you eat protein, your digestive system breaks it down into amino acids. Those amino acids enter your bloodstream and they get transported to your muscles. Inside your muscle cells, your body uses those amino acids to synthesize new muscle proteins. So when you make those muscle tears, you are basically rebuilding those gaps. But here's the key. Not all amino acids trigger muscle protein synthesis equally. There's one amino acid that's primarily important, and that's leucine. So leucine is a branched chain amino acid, or a BCAA, that acts as a trigger for muscle protein synthesis. And when that level rises in your blood, it tells your body to start building muscle. That's why you need a minimum amount of protein per meal, roughly 20 to 30 grams, to hit that leucine threshold to trigger muscle protein synthesis. So if you eat 10 grams of protein, you don't hit that threshold. So muscle protein synthesis is triggered, but mildly. It doesn't give you the maximum results. If you eat 40 to 50 grams, you hit that threshold hard. Muscle protein synthesis is triggered strongly, and that's why spreading protein out throughout your day matters. So if you're hitting that leucine threshold multiple times each day, each time you're triggering a strong muscle protein synthesis response. And over the course of a day, that response adds up. So the more triggers, the more muscle growth. So what changes when you get your protein right? Here's what I see when clients actually hit their protein target. Weeks 1 through 2, their energy improves. Their recovery between sets feels better. They feel more full because protein is satiating. Weeks 3 through 4, body composition starts to shift. They're losing fat while building muscle simultaneously, which is that body recomposition process. Their clothes start to fit differently, their muscle definition starts to show, and their strength increases noticeably. Now, month 2 through 3, significant body recomposition happens, visible muscle starts showing, there's clear definition, energy rates are higher, recovery is faster. So we compare that to clients who stay under their protein target. They train hard, they show up to the gym, but their results plateau. They're losing weight slowly, some muscle, they're not building definition, and they're not getting stronger. And it's frustrating because they're doing the work, but their body doesn't have the building blocks it actually needs to build muscle. So protein is not optional, it's foundational. Now, some people will ask me, is there a difference between men and women when it comes to protein intake? And the short answer is no, the principles are the same. Your body uses amino acids the same way, whether you are male or female. Muscle protein synthesis is triggered the same with a leucine threshold. Protein synthesis works the same way. The main difference is total daily protein targets might be slightly lower for women because our body weight is lower. But the percentage of calories from protein should still be around that 35%. And the distribution throughout the day still matters just as much. So if you're a woman, don't think you need a different strategy. You don't. You need the same high protein distributed throughout the day to hit your goals. The only difference is the total grams based on your body weight. And as far as what kind of foods you're getting in, I just want to address that a little bit more deeply. For years, I did drink protein shakes post-workout. They were convenient, quick. I could drink them immediately after training, bring them with me to the gym. Recently, I switched to eating whole foods because I work from home. Eating a high protein meal after my workouts instead of a shake is just a preference thing, but it hasn't really changed my results. And it's because your body doesn't care where the protein comes from. So whether it's a protein shake, a chicken breast, salmon, eggs, beans, yogurt, cottage cheese, does not matter. Your digestive system breaks it down into amino acids. Your muscles use those amino acids to build protein. So the source doesn't matter. What matters is your total daily protein intake, the distribution throughout the day, and your consistency. So use whatever works for you. If you hate protein shakes, don't eat them. If you prefer whole foods, do that. If shakes are convenient, use them. Or do a combination. Shakes some days, whole foods the other. Totally fine either way. The mechanism works the same. So here's the bottom line of all of this that you need to understand. Muscle protein synthesis is the mechanism that builds muscle. Lifting weights is the stimulus. Protein is the building material. So without adequate protein, without understanding how to spread it out throughout the day, when to eat it and how much you need, you are leaving gains on the table. You can train perfectly, but without the right protein intake, your muscles don't have what they need to rebuild stronger. That's why I am obsessed with protein intake, and that's why I recommend 35% of calories from protein to all my clients, because the data is clear. When protein is adequate, the distribution throughout the day happens, and your body recomposition follows. So muscle grows, fat decreases, strength increases, and definition shows. But when protein is too low, poorly timed, nothing changes. You plateau, you get frustrated, you think you're doing something wrong, but the problem is simple. It's just not enough amino acids to give you the building blocks necessary. So here's what I challenge you to do. For the next 30 days, hit that 35% protein goal of your calories. Spread it out across 4 to 5 meals throughout the day, prioritizing breakfast first. Don't change anything else. Keep your training the same, keep your cardio the same, keep your focus on protein, and I promise you, you will see a difference. Your energy is gonna improve, your recovery will improve, your body composition will shift, because now your muscles have what they need to actually build. And that's muscle protein synthesis in action. So go eat your protein, people. You got this.